The first box object hides everything that we don't want to show, meaning the barrel broken on the floor. That's all that does. And then the damage switch, when it receives damage, it enables the floating object. The floating object falls on top of the other damage switch, and this damage switch enables this box object, and this box object shows these three pieces and hides the barrel. Hey everyone, so I'm gonna show you how I made the shooting puzzle in Awake, the puzzle where you shoot that platform and it falls. So this is a request video. I'm not taking requests. I might. Remember to buy me a coffee if you enjoy these videos. It's always cool to have some extra cash. Anyway, whoring aside. So this is the basic thing you're gonna have in your puzzle. The shooting part and the falling down part. The shooting part has to be a damage switch. We're going to change it to damage switch. And what the damage switch does is it switches things on and off when it receives damage. So that's all it does. It switches things on and off. So that's going to be a damage switch. The falling thing is going to be a floating object. These float on water, and if there's no water, it falls down. And we're going to achieve that with nothing. We're just going to turn it off for the time being so it doesn't fall down when we start the map. So we're going to disable it. And when we shoot the damage switch here, we're going to enable this one, the floating object. So to do that, we go down to here, targets, click that, and then control right click the floating object and add it. Now there's a couple of things here you can remove. This, I don't know what it is, but I removed it. And the damage to turn on is more important. I put it to 1, so any damage it receives, it can break. You can actually use this as more advanced puzzle to put it to a value that's a high value. For example, maybe you need a grenade instead of a punch to make it fall. So here you can do that. We don't need to add or change anything else in the hit one, the damage, the shooty one. Now the floating is done, is just enabled, disabled, and this already works. Let's test it, because why the hell not? Okay, so we disabled the floating object, so it stays there. It doesn't fall. And that's it. So now we're going to just get a gun. And we're going to shoot the damage switch, and when it receives damage, it enables the floating object, and the floating object falls. Alright, so in Awake, I had a bunch of stuff on the floor already broken, because if you let the floating objects on the floor, when the player passes over them, they'll float away, right? They'll just float on the floor and it looks terrible. So what I did was everything that fell on the floor, as soon as it fell on the floor, I hid them, and then I showed a bunch of objects fallen. So I faked everything that fell on the floor. I faked the way it fell. Basically, I'm going to show you what I mean. So if we put a broken piece of barrel here, So let's put this under the thing so you can see what I'm talking about. So we have one piece. Let's add a couple. Another piece. Another piece. And we need to hide these first. So when the player arrives to the place, there's nothing on the floor broken, right? So to do that, we're going to get a BoxObjectEnabler, one of these, and we are going to increase its size. The important thing here is the player needs to move through this box to hide these objects here. So you might want to not put the box near the objects, otherwise the player here, when he arrives here, he'll see the broken pieces. So you want to put this box object somewhere far away, or at least where the player doesn't have visibility, you know? So, I mean, I think you understand, but I'm just gonna show you for sake. So we do that, and you can get a wall. So imagine your map has a wall here where the players can't see the broken pieces, because when you start your map, the pieces are going to be on the floor, or are going to be visible. So fine, let's do a better version. So like that. Yeah, so the player comes through here. The player has to go through here, right? Through here and over here to see the thing. So you place it here. So when they pass through so they need to pass through it, through the box object, before they see the broken pieces. So with this box object, we're going to hide those pieces. So as soon as the player moves through the box, those pieces get hidden. That's not very visible, so let's just try and make that a little bit more visible with a floor that's not brown. One of these is fine. So that's the floor. All right, something like that. Okay, so we go to the box object, attributes, and we attach the objects that we want to hide when the player passes through the box object. So we do on entering, means when the player enters the box area, double click here to add a object or a group of objects to modify, and we'll add a visibility modifier, so to hide and show. Next we go to targets and we select what objects we want to hide. So it's these, so control, right click, add barrel, add barrel, add barrel. And here we do visible on apply, false. So invisible on apply. So when the player passes through it, through the box object, it becomes invisible. These three pieces that we added here, they become invisible. Next. Next, this is the floating object. Now, when the barrel falls, we need to hide the barrel and show these pieces, these broken pieces, like it's the barrel that broke into three pieces, right? So to do that, we get another damage switch. This time we use a dummy box. And this has to be above the floor because the floating object has to actually hit the the dummy box here, the damage switch, because these damage switches are, you know, they receive damage. So when something hits them, it's damage. So we have to be sure that the barrel hits the face here. So we're gonna change the dummy box from model object to damage switch. And we don't want this to be visible. So we'll change the skin to null. This makes it invisible, and it has the same properties as something that's visible. It has collisions, I think. Well, it does have collisions. I don't know why this skin does that, but it does. So null, and it's a damage switch. So now we go to fields, and like I said, the damage switch can't hide or show things. It only enables or disables stuff. Like we can see the switch here. So when it receives damage, it switches between enabled and disabled. And the only option we have is enable. And we don't want to enable these three pieces. We want to hide them. So we have to use another box object, because the box objects actually can hide stuff. So box object, put it somewhere, anywhere, it doesn't matter. It's invisible, the player can't crash into it or anything. So we'll disable this box, and on this damage switch, we'll enable the box, right? Because we can only enable with the damage switch. So here, we set it to enable this box object. So control, right click, add. And again, this damage switch, I'll put it to 1, so anything that falls does enough damage. Right, so we will use this box object when it gets enabled by the damage switch. When it gets enabled, it will show these three pieces. So we'll go to unenabling, because it's when it gets enabled, not when the player enters. This time it's when it gets enabled. Double click to add stuff, and we go to visibility modifier, because we want to hide. Yeah, we want to hide and show stuff. We want to hide the barrel, and we want to show the broken pieces. So we go to visibility modifier, and in targets, we select the pieces that we want to show. So control, that's not right. We don't want to use the damage switch, remove objects. We want to use the three pieces here. And the damage switch is on top, so I'm just going to hide it for now. So we go to the box object, targets, control, right click, add this piece. These are the pieces that are going to appear. And as we want them to appear, it's visible on apply true, right? Visible. We can use this box object to hide that barrel when it falls. So this one is visible. We don't want that. We want to make the barrel invisible. So we add another item, double click, visibility modifier, targets, control, right click, add barrel, invisible. So let's see if I'm forgetting something or anything. Right. Damage switch receives damage from the player. It enables the floating object, the barrel falls down on the other damage switch. The damage switch enables the box object, and the box object, when it gets enabled, it changes the visibility of these three pieces and that barrel, right? So it makes these three visible, and this one invisible, the barrel. So let's test to see if everything is working fine. "20 minutes later." Alrighty. Which side is it? It's over there. Yeah. So at the beginning of the map, the broken pieces on the floor are going to be visible. So we have to force the player to pass through that box object that's over there to hide those, right? So make sure of that. So we're going to pass through the box object here. And the damn pieces are still there. So we messed something up. On entering visibility of the three items, visible on apply, no, invisible. So what the hell happened? It might be the check interval here. It's too slow. So this checks if the player is inside the box at times, right? So the check interval here, the default one, is 0.3 seconds, right? So 30 milliseconds or something like that, a third of a second. And this is a tenth of a second, so it's much quicker. So we're going to change the frequency to check if the player is inside to frequent, so it checks quicker, because it's rather small, and if the player passes through it in under a second, it won't register. So I doubt it's that what's giving us the problem now, but it could be, because I don't find anything else that could be the problem here. So those three invisible, right? If we select them, we can see the gray square. So it should hide these. Not on enabling, but on entering. Correct. Oh, block revert. Well, it says works only for pursuit breaker, but I don't think so. When you exit the box, it reverts whatever it did. So you enter the box, it hides, and when you exit the box, it shows the pieces again. So if we block revert, it should do the trick. It can only be this. I mean, unless those pieces are weird and you can't hide them. So I keep checking, but they're always going to be there. Okay, so it's the apply, yeah, it's the revert. So when we exit the box, it reverts back to, it reverts the visibility of the broken pieces. So remember to check that, block revert. So we're going to check this box object, and we're going to block revert here again. We don't want things to revert from the state we set them. Not in this case anyway. So minimize that, show this, block revert. We can also add a delay. So this is instant. As soon as the player enters the box object, it instantly hides those pieces. We might want to add a delay. So like after 5 seconds of entering the box, we hide those pieces. So if we want that, we just add 5 seconds here, and that'll do the trick. And the revert delay is the same thing. If we disable this block revert, so if we do this, if we add 5 and then 10, When the player enters the box object, the pieces will hide in 5 seconds. And when we exit the box, the pieces will show after 10 seconds of the player exiting the box. So that's what these do. We don't want any of those delays, so we're going to do that. Right. So did we do that here? Yes. Block revert. Perfect. So that can be closed. We don't need to mess with these anymore. Okay. Here, let's see if there's anything I missed. We do have the conflict side. So the damage switch can receive damage from anything. There's 2 settings to change that. So we only want, or at least in the case of my puzzle, I only wanted the damage switch to receive damage from the player. The switch was up high, so no zombie could get to it, but if the switch is something on the ground and a zombie touches it, it will, you know, do the puzzle, and we don't want that. Or in this case, we don't want that. We only want the player to be able to make the puzzle or force the puzzle. So to disable any damage from anything else other than the player, there's 2 attributes, which I don't know which one works. And I'm not going to test it, so just enable both of them. So it's counter player, I think, or pro player. I don't know. I don't think it's this one, but I checked the map and the awake map, and I set this to counter player. I don't know. Maybe it has nothing to do with anything. So you can try without anything here. But the real attribute, so to speak, is triggered only by player damage here. True. So only the player will activate that. That is for that damage switch. For this one, this damage switch here is going to be activated when the floating object hits the thing. So it's not only when the player hits it. So we leave that thing triggered only by player object off, right? We can also change the type of triggering. So it can be triggered by a pistol, a revolver, etc. And we can change the trigger by damage type, like fire, electricity. If we leave these to default, it'll be any kind of damage. So I think that's it. Let's just save this and test it again. Of course, you can add, like I added smoke to hide the fact that I was hiding and showing objects, changing their visibility. I added a bunch of smoke. So you can do that, or think of another way to hide the, you know, the magic. I don't know. I always check. Everything's fine. Yep. So 3 pieces hidden. We shoot the platform or the thing. Boom. So the smoke I was telling you about is to hide that weird transition. Yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for watching, and I hope it helped. That guy from Discord, I don't remember your name, but you asked how to do this, so here's the video. And shoot me a line if you need or want any other tutorials. I'll try to make a video. Tools are old, but Dying Light 1 is still great. And I miss it, and I love this goddamn gun, and the gameplay is super fun. And I can't wait to release my next map. It'll have a lot of guns. So yeah, see ya. See you until the next video. Bye. All right, so actually I'm gonna show, or I'm gonna add more stuff here so you can get a, maybe another or more training, so to speak, of how to add more stuff. So let's add that smoke to hide that that effect. So we will change this to, I don't remember, smoke. Which smoke? I don't remember. I don't know. Burning building. Yeah, that should be big, right? Okay. That's fire. It says right there, Doom Guy. Dumbass. Smoke gray. That's not cool. That's very small. Smoke cloud. It has to be a quick one. Smoke grenade. These are lame. So maybe it's explosion. No. Look, I don't remember which one, but this one will hide it. So imagine this is a TNT kegel, TNT barrel, and it explodes when it falls. Right? We added the effects emitter. We need to disable it. And use this box object to enable it. So we go on enabling, double click to add a new item. We go here and we change the enable modifier. So we're going to enable that effects. Again, block revert, targets or target. I think it's the same thing. This one, I think, takes more items. That one can only take one, so I always use this one because why not? Control, right click, add, and that's it. If I'm not forgetting anything, that's it. You can also add this sound. What was the name of the thing? Sound emitter, right? Sound emitter here, so it does some noise. Again, we disable it, so only when we shoot the thing it makes noise. So disable, and we can have actually two here. We can have one when we shoot the damage switch here. So we'll add another item here, another target. So remember, this damage switch changes the enabled state. So we set the sound to disabled. Here, we disabled it, set it to false, and this damage switch is going to enable it when it gets shot. So go here, go close to be able to select this, control, add. And let's just add a sound here so we know it's working. How do we add sounds again? Or where do we add sounds here? Sound name. Explosion, I guess. No, not explosion, but I added metal, metal creaking for the chains. So let's find some metal, small metal sound, maybe this one. We can test the sounds here. That's good, why not? So, but that sounds like it's falling, or yeah. So metal, I actually think I used a custom sound. Creak, I guess. Whatever. So it's just to get an idea of how you add stuff. And when it falls on the floor, this one, sound, disabled, And this box object is the one that enables everything on the ground and hides and shows. So we have a visibility modifier here, another one there, an enabler. And this one does what? It hides, or it enables, actually, not hides, enables. So we can use this one. Instead of adding another one, let's hide that. So instead of adding another enabler, we don't need to add another enabler. So delete object. We already have an enabler here, so we'll just use this one. So add to the targets. Right now we have the fire, so it enables the fire. So why not add the sound as well? Add. So now these are two things that are going to get enabled. Let's change the sound. Sound name, sound name, sound name, sound name. Now we can do explosion. Blister. Cool. So, yep, let's test. So we're going to hear two sounds when we shoot that and when the barrel falls. All right. Okay, so the first one didn't go off and the second one is repeating. Why? Let's see why. The repeating one is easy. It's set to -1, so it loops over and over for infinity. So loop count 0. Plays once, I think. How many times it should play? Loop doesn't mean that. Oh, it does, yeah. So once. It loops once, I think. I don't know. Let's try it with 1. So this one didn't play because maybe it did. It was just too low, the volume. Anyway, we want it to play just once, and we can, we're going to see if everything is set up correctly here, if it enables them both. Yep, it enables the floating object and the sound emitter, so the problem is with the sound. It's probably too low. The sound of the gun, that. So volume, let's put 10. Hopefully we don't explode our ears. And yeah, we'll use the bow to shoot. So let's see, bow, crossbow. I think, sure. So let's see. All right, so the first one doesn't play, I don't know why, but you get the idea. The second one played fine. And yeah, man, that's how I did it. Another thing important to add is that what hits the damage switch here is the floating object. So if you want to have a platform, or my main point is you got to be sure that the floating object hits the damage switch. In this case, we only have a barrel, so it's gonna fall and hit the damage switch. But in the case if you want to have like a lot of stuff that falls, you have to make sure that it's the floating object that hits the damage switch. So I'm gonna show an example. So platform, let's put not that one, this one can be this one. So right now the floating object is unique. It has nothing else connected to it, so it's the only thing that falls. So how we make many things fall is by attaching them to the floating object. So through here, attached to hierarchy, you click it, and we can see in the objects list here that the platform now is attached to the floating object. So when the floating object falls, the platform also falls. Now, if we leave it like this, we can see the platform is below the floating object. So when they both fall, it's the platform that's going to hit the damage switch, and nothing is going to happen. So in this case, what we can do is change which of the objects is the floating object, right? So right now we have the platform that's connected to the barrel. We're going to unconnect it. We're going to floating object here. We're going to change this back to model object, and we're going to set the floating object to be the platform. So floating object. And now we connect the barrel to the platform. So when the platform falls, the barrel follows with it. Okay, so seeing we changed the floating object, we have to go to the damage switch and add the new floating object. Control right click on the floating object, add, and that's it. So let's test. Okay. Oh, I forgot to disable the floating object. What happened there is that because it's enabled, the floating object fell when we started the map. So we have to always remember to disable the floating object, and this damage switch will enable it when it gets hit. All right, so okay. So we have to remember that it's the floating object that has to hit the damage switch on the floor. So if you have multiple things that are gonna fall, be sure that the bottom one is the one that is the floating object. What you can do is to make sure that the thing that hits the damage switch is the floating object. And you have a lot of stuff up here. So imagine you have, it's not a platform or just a platform, but it's multiple things like that. And we attach that to the floating object, so it falls as well. So when this falls, there's a possibility that the model object is the one thing that hits the damage switch, and due to physics, this should do this, and the floating object should hit the damage switch. But maybe it won't. Maybe it'll fall like that and get stuck, so the floating object won't hit the damage switch. We could add this object to be the floating object, or what we can do to make sure that it's always a floating object that hits the damage switch is we add a dummy box underneath everything that falls, like that, and make it the floating object. So floating object. Now let's disable it. Remember always to disable it. And now we change this back to model object. and we disconnect everything from this, because this is no longer the falling or the floating object. So here, and this will be the floating object, so we connect everything to that one. Okay, so that is the floating object now. So this way we're always sure that that's going to be the first thing that falls and hits, or hits the damage switch. Now, we don't want the faces to be shown here of the model object, so we change the skin to null, and it should work. So yeah, so this is a way to make sure that the floating object is the thing that hits the damage switch. Of course, we need to hide everything that falls, so we've added a few things here to the falling stuff, and not everything is getting hidden, so we have to go to the, I'm going to name it hider box object. So this is the thing that hides, or yeah, this is the box object that hides and shows stuff on the floor. So hider is not a good name. We do visibility just to know what this object does. We name it just to know what it does. So we go to there and we add items here. So we added the platform. We want that to disappear, so we can put one on the floor like we want to. So we have to go to the visibility modifier. This one does visible on apply. We don't want that. So we go to the other one. This one is the one that hides objects. So we'll add the platform here. So we have the barrel. And now we add the platform. So with this selected, control right click the platform, add, and there, that will hide the platform when they fall. And the dummy box, I don't think you need to hide when it falls, because I think it's completely invisible to the player. So we will test it. So to finish this puzzle, let's just add the platform on the floor as it would fall, right? So everything that we add platform, everything that falls, we have to put it on the floor when we have to fake that falling stuff. So we'll put this one here, because it's cool, because we can play with how we want stuff to be shown on the floor, right? It's not random. So we could let the floating object and everything else fall and leave them there, but like I said, when the player runs through them, they'll float away. If you want to try that, you'll have to make everything a floating object and enable everything from the damage switch. So not just this floating object, but everything that falls needs to be a floating object, and then you add them all to the damage switch here. Where? Here. So we haven't added that one, I forgot. So if you want to make everything a floating object, you'll have to add them all here, so they get all enabled. And then they'll fall naturally, but then, like I said, the player moves through them and they'll float away and act weird. So that's why I fake the fallen stuff. We need to enable the floating object from the damage switch, which right now is not the platform, is the dummy box underneath. So we go here, control, right click, add dummy box. Now it gets enabled. Let's take another look. So that's disabled. This doesn't matter because it's a model object. And let's see if everything is attached. So the platform and the barrel, everything is attached to the floating object. We can actually see here, it's a floating object and these are model objects, right? So that's set up, and now we just going to place this. So yeah, what we could do is that, and then actually make like a stylized fall thing. So like that, and that's what's gonna be shown to the player when everything falls, like that. So this, everything we add to the floor needs to be hidden at the beginning, so we use this box object. This one we can hide, we can call hider boxo. And this is the box object that's going to hide everything. So we need to, everything we add to the floor here, we need to hide first. So we go to this box object, and on entering, we add more targets, right click, control right click, add. So now it hides at the beginning of the map. And this, let's see if everything is correct. So on enabling, it shows the objects on the floor. So we have to add the platform, control, wait, not that. So select there, and then control right click, add. So that box object hides the platform and everything, and this one then shows it. So that's done, and let's see what this does. This one hides the barrel and the military cargo. So yeah, that should be enough for that. And what's the next thing? Local enabler. What does this do? This enables the FX emitter, the fire, and the sound. So this sound doesn't work. I don't know why, but it should work. I'm just not going to be bothered to. Well, actually, let's just see, because it's a simple enable disable. So it should enable that sound. Let's see if it's started disabled. Yeah, it's disabled, and it has sound. So why won't it play? Maybe it's the sound. Maybe you just have to put in a new sound. Let's try with a new sound. Because all that's happening there is the damage switch is enabling that. So that's all that's happening, so it should work. Let's do another explosion to be able to hear it. All right. Because of the gun, maybe we don't hear it very well. So let's test everything out. So to recap, everything that falls needs to be a model object and needs to be attached to a floating object, which is the thing that has to hit the damage switch on the floor. So let's test. I really need to add a gun to the character in these tutorials. Okay, everything looks good. Everything is hidden on the floor. Everything is showing up there. So let's try with the arrows. There we go. And we missed. And we missed. We missed. What? There we go. All right, everything worked fine except the sound there. I don't know what's happening. So maybe what you could do is instead of enabling the sound through the damage switch, you can add another box object and through the box object enable that sound. I mean, this should work, but seeing it's not. And if we want to just go through this quicker, we add a new box object enabler here. This is going to enable that sound. We don't add it to that one. So we unconnect this sound emitter, that one there. So right click, remove object. So now the damage switch is only activating the floating object. And we go to this one, we do disable, and we add on enabling. So the damage switch is going to enable this box object. So when it enables, on enable, double click. We can actually do play sound here. So I'm going to show you that instead. Block revert. I mean, it can't undo sound, so that doesn't matter. Where the hell do you add the sound? Oh, sound name, here it is. Explosion. This is just another way of playing sound. Let's do this maybe. I don't think we can hear the sound though through here. We can't test the sound through this method. I don't see. So that's a negative. So let's just hear the sound through this one. All right, I mean, okay, it should be heard. So that's set up here. Object play sound. When it gets enabled, it plays the sound autocannon. And it plays it once. So through this method of playing sounds, using the box object enabler, it doesn't look like you can play the sound multiple times. This is all on the wiki. If you look at the wiki, a lot of this stuff is there explained. So we disabled the box object and now we just enable it through the damage switch. Select there, targets, right click or control right click, add. And when we hit the damage, the box object gets enabled. And when it gets enabled, on enabling, it plays the sound that we added there. So that's another way of adding sound. Going back to this, sound apart, everything is working well here. The platform on the floor is showing, everything is showing, so everything is working. The arrows is a bit weird. So yeah, some weird shit will happen when dealing with floating objects. That's it for the video. It's been, you know, a long ass video, and yeah, I hope that answers the question to how I made that part. And yeah, if you have comments, leave them, and if you don't. Okay, see ya.